evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Yapping with me, Saul Montes-Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information. And today I have anything but useless information to you. I have the great honor to have with us for a conversation a little more in depth than you're accustomed to with Dr. Mordechai Kader. Dr. Kader is a veteran of the IDF. He spent 25 years with Israeli intelligence, and it is one of the foremost, most certainly knowledgeable folks in the area of the Middle East and Arab studies. But I will let him tell you a little bit more about himself. Dr. Kader, shalom, and thank you for staying awake this late in Israel so that we can do this today. I very much appreciate it.
Well, Saul, I don't know if it is too late or too early. It is 3:15 a.m., so it could be
True.
both.
So it is good evening to the audience and good morning to you, sir. It's always a pleasure. Tell the audience, those who don't know you, I'm sure that many by now do. Uh, what is it that you do?
Well, I'm 71 years old. I was born in Tel Aviv, and I studied Arabic in high school. My mother tongue is Yiddish. Uh, I studied Arabic in high school, and in the army, I, with a group of other kids who studied in the same class, we went en bloc to the Israeli intelligence, and I served for 25 years in the 8200 high tech unit in all kinds of positions which involved Arabic. I was released in 1995 and I joined the academic world. I worked on my Ph.D. About the Syrian discourse, the Syrian political language of the Syrian media under Hafiz Assad, the former Assad. And,
Yes, the father of the current Bashar.
right, Bashar is a big butcher, and his
Yes,
father was a smaller butcher.
true.
Um, and I worked for 28 years in the academia at Bar-Ilan University as a researcher, as a teacher, as a lecturer, and in some think tanks like Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, and more in Israel and abroad. I'm a commentator in the media, in some media outlets here in Israel, and now I am taking part in the war against Israel as an interviewee on Arab media, since I speak Arabic fluently. In addition to my English, I don't know what you think about my English, but my Arabic is much better. And
It's probably better than mine anyway.
thank you. And like every day, I have some interviews in Arab media outlets about the war in Gaza.
In
And
Gaza. Well,
in between, I'm advisor to all kinds of branches of the Israeli government.
yes. Let me start with something that I found from you, because I was, let's say, at the same time proud and concerned that in 2020 I was before the U.S. Senate on a briefing for staff and senators, where I tried to warn them about the rising tide of anti-Semitism in Western institutions and how it was becoming a terrorism de jure with state sanction. And of course, nobody paid much attention to what I had to say. And in May, just before Twitter suspended me and recently reinstated me, I was warning about Hamas and how, for as long as they were in Gaza, there would be no peace anywhere. And then I found that in April of this year, you published an article in JNS, Death to Israel, the Iranian plan to attack Israel. Uh, where did you go to divination school? Because you were correct in all of your assumptions.
Well, this article was written um, on the basis of an information which I got from friends in Iraq. These friends are, they are against Iran. They don't like the Iranian takeover of Iraq, and they got to know about the Iranian preparations for all-out war against Israel, which will be waged by the militias, not by Iran itself, in order not to expose itself to sanctions, but by the proxies of Iran from Lebanon, I mean Hezbollah, from Syria, and they have 17 militias only in Syria. They have over 50 militias in Iraq. They have the Houthis in Yemen, and from Gaza Strip, Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. What they planned, the Iranians, is an attack on Israel, which will be, waged suddenly by all these militias together. Barrage of missiles, which will fall on Israel from both Gaza and Lebanon, accompanied with land attack from Gaza and from Lebanon in order to capture as many hostages as possible. I'm talking about thousands, because in the north we have some towns next to the border like Nahariya, Shlomi, Kiryat Shmone, Rosh Pina, and many kibbutzim in between. And
Kiryat Shmona is there too, or did I
yes,
miss the
Kiryat Shmone is
pronunciation?
one of these, no doubt. And after 3 days of heavy barrage of missiles and attacks on Israel, Israel will collapse according to their satanic plan, and Israel will be destroyed totally. The Americans will be caught by surprise. The Europeans will be surprised, and until they wake up to understand what is happening, Israel will be finished. This was the Iranian plan, and every militia of all these should have waited until the clue, which will come from Iran, start and be successful. Hamas were not supposed to launch the attack on October 7th. They were supposed to be trained, to be armed. They were armed by the Iranians. They were trained by the Iranians. They were equipped by the Iranians. They were sponsored by the Iranians and the Qataris, who are in bed with the Iranians in many things.
In many ways.
And Hamas should have waited.
They are, among other things, the international bankers for the Iranians. It's one of the most successful ways of bypassing sanctions that the Iranians have, particularly in the financial arena.
It's like a symbiosis of the predator and the financier. And Qatar, sponsored, of course, Hamas, as it sponsors the other militias, and therefore Hamas should have waited to the doomsday when everybody will attack Israel together. Thank you so much.
I should say, I forgot that you are an Yiddish Mensch. Gesundheit.
Keinem Dank. What happened is that Hamas started a private war with all the weapons and ammunition which they got from Iran because of the negotiations between Israel and Saudi Arabia during the last year, for normalization between the two countries. And the Hamas were afraid that if Saudi Arabia has the normalization agreement with Israel, all the Arab world and the Islamic world as well will follow
Yes.
Saudi Arabia, and the
Will follow
Palestinian,
suit, and Iran will be so much more isolated in the region.
and they will, yeah, and the Palestinians will be forgotten. Nobody
Yes.
will. So they decided to turn the table on the heads of the Saudis. This what they say in Arabic, in order to prevent this peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia. The question was the timing. What what, what date will be chosen? And they looked for a day which will give them the biggest benefit by the attack.
And
Usually
that
near
was in
Gaza,
Chatora.
there are some 15 places like kibbutzim which are around Gaza. But on October 7th, there was something else in addition, which was the music festival, the Nova, is what they call it, um, music festival, which brought some 4,000 or even 4,500 youth from all over Israel to celebrate some nice music in the nature. And this started on Thursday through Friday, and it was supposed to continue until October 7th, Saturday, October 7th at noon. Hamas knew about this because this is a biannual event. They saw it in the internet, all the preparations, and not only this, workers which Israel allowed to work in Israel, and they insisted on sending workers into Israel, like 20,000 every day.
Yes.
They were passing near the site of the festival, and they saw the preparations. They saw the stage, they saw the loudspeakers, and there were big loudspeakers. They saw the cover of the whole place. They saw all the parking lots. They saw the facilities, everything they saw, because they worked on it for like 2 weeks in advance in order to prepare it, and they knew about this. So they timed the attack to the early morning, since it is already light, and the kids cannot hide in the darkness or run away in the darkness, and many of them will be very tired after dancing for the whole night, maybe drunk, and maybe with drugs as well, and there will be an easy prey for the attackers. And they actually sent a whole group of fighters, terrorists,
Yes.
especially to this festival. In addition to the groups which were sent to every place, every farm, which
Of
was
the
around
kibbutz.
Gaza. Israel was caught by surprise because Israel assumed that Hamas are deterred, and nobody expected such a thing. Maybe here and there, small, disturbances, but
Small attacks as usual.
not such a
Okay,
big.
is it fair to say that Israel had fallen into a pattern of containing Hamas, and therefore, we have the Iron Dome. They lob thousands of rockets every year, but we can catch them. It's okay. And with the wall and vigilance, every now and then somebody is going to come out with a knife in a mall or blow up a bus, but overall, we can contain it. And suddenly, Hamas actions have changed dramatically the field of battle. There is a new paradigm in place.
No doubt, this is actually what they did. They got us used to, first of all, silence. Secondly, small problems on the border. People throw rocks or things like this, which nobody really pays attention to. Or even once in a while, one day of some exchange of rockets or things like this, but nothing serious like what we saw on October 7. And this why is, and don't forget that Hamas controlled Gaza already more than 16 years. 16 years,
Yes.
which
Ever since they threw out of windows their predecessors from Fatah.
right
I
from
noticed
the
that the media never mentions this, but Hamas took power in Gaza in a bloodbath. They killed hundreds. They murdered government officials from the Palestinian Authority in their beds with their families, threw them out of windows, and took power. And then they called for elections, which of course they won.
of course. So uh, so
but
this
but they
so
make it
this is
they make it
Hamas.
sound as if these were some kind of legitimate government. They're not.
Look, they always negotiated with us for the 16 years about the conditions of more or less the siege which Israel put on them. How many people will be allowed to come to Israel to work? How many trucks of food will come to Gaza every day? How much fuel Israel will give them to run their electricity, and the communications and the electric and everything, and they created through the 16 years the impression that all they want is to run their semi-state in Gaza, and the ways how to run it. That's all. The
Yeah.
Israel, although we knew about their army, um, we were not. We didn't think that this army is preparing an attack. The impression was that this army is only a way how to give money to people, means how to keep people employed so they don't
Right.
run in the streets and demand another
So
government or
they
thing.
get hundreds of millions from the U.S., from the UN refugee program, from the
And from
European
Qatar.
Union, and through Qatar, and then they hire everybody because of course there is no industry. There is a little bit of commerce in Gaza. There is no industry. There's no production of anything. But everybody ends up being an employee of Hamas, paid for with this money received from abroad.
Right. So this was the impression that they used the money, or they used the recruitment to the army only as a way to give people some money so they can run their
Right.
life. And don't forget that this was another thing, that all the food which they had was coming from Israel, and 20% of the food production in Israel was sent to Gaza. So this was a source of income for the Israelis as well. So it was like a symbiosis of
Right.
Israel and Hamas, and Israel was more than sure that Hamas will not do anything against this symbiosis because they want to have a state and the government and the whole thing. And don't forget that this is more or less the only state which the Muslim Brotherhood run. Well, the other one is
Yes.
Turkey. But in the Arab world, after Morsi was kicked out
I
by
was going to
Sisi
say, with
in
the
Egypt,
interlude of Morsi in Egypt, yes.
right? When Morsi was kicked out by Sisi in mid 2013, the only place which the Muslim Brotherhood controlled was Gaza. So the Muslim Brotherhood will never give up, and they will never do anything which will jeopardize the existence of this entity which they have in Gaza. I would even say
Right.
a state in the make. However, they didn't want to declare statehood, and now we understand why. Because if they were a state, they were bound by the international law, which militia is exempt from. And this
Yes.
is
The
actually what explains,
irregular combatants.
right, irregular militias. By the way, Hezbollah is the same. Hezbollah doesn't take Lebanon over exactly because of this reason. In order to be able to do all kinds of things or crimes without being considered as criminal, because Hezbollah is not a state.
Right.
And this,
Refresh me because I there are some things I don't look at every day, but if I recall, irregular irregular combatants cannot be considered prisoners of war and had to be processed through the courts as any other criminal.
you're right. But what they do is, in order to get released, they kidnap people and then
Yep.
negotiate on exchange as it is these
But
days
as they're
with
trying
Hamas.
now,
Right.
as they are trying as we speak,
And and
which of
and
course
since,
creates an enormous moral dilemma for Israel,
of course,
because you know that if you don't negotiate, they will kill the hostages. I'm of the opinion that they will anyway. If you do negotiate and release criminals, all you do is encourage the taking of more hostages for more concessions. And it's a never ending story. So, where do you draw the line?
well, this is the problem. What if a civilian is launching missiles against you? Can you hit him? He's a civilian. And if you say
Right.
yes because he is fighting you, he's launching the missiles from his home. And this way, if you hit him, you will kill his wife and children and mother-in-law
And
as well.
children. Yeah.
So are you allowed to shoot at him, knowing that his wife and children might be attacked, might be killed as well?
Well,
It
I'm
is,
one of those who think that you have no choice and that the man sealed the fate of his wife and children when he decided to lob rockets from his patio.
yeah. And
Uh,
what if he
it's
launches,
like we've seen in Al Shifa Hospital
right? And
that
it's exactly what if he launches the missiles from
right.
a hospital or from a school? Are you
And
allowed
and
to hit it?
can you really say that the doctors and the nurses in Al Shifa didn't know this was going on?
Of course they know, but what can they do?
Of course.
They cannot do anything.
That's the question. Well, I don't know. It's a very thin line between being forced into a situation and accepting it. And what could they have done? Inform the Israelis, look for a
Well,
way. Yes.
well, this is what they their way of thinking. And on October 7th, actually, they started the war by crossing the fence or the barrier in like 20 different places, and every place had every Israeli, settlement or kibbutz had a unit of Hamas attacking it, bursting
Yep.
into the houses and killing people, burning people, you know, burning them in a way which today it is very hard to detect where they are. Bones didn't even remain in these fires, which they came with special bombs, little bombs which set fire in every home. Raped women, girls, and then they burned their bodies in order to conceal the evidence. They beheaded children, and we know all these things because they had a GoPro cameras,
Yeah.
and they actually filmed
They
what they
they
did.
streamed they streamed the
Right,
savagery.
and we found
Yeah.
those who were killed. We found the cameras, and we saw what there is in these cameras. It is shocking to see what they did on. And they actually filmed it and documented it. Many of them are caught, in Israel, caught by, and we hold them. Many of them got killed. Many Israelis, like 1,500 or 1,400, were being killed, kidnapped, and missing. And the fight, which started on October 7, is still on, and we are already 46 or 47 days after that. Israel declared war against Gaza, and a la guerre comme à la guerre, at a war like at a war. And Israel also had a maneuver into Gaza in order this time to topple Hamas altogether, both the military wing and the civil wing of Hamas. Israel is vowed not to allow anybody who is connected with Hamas to stay there in Gaza. He will be either killed or imprisoned or run away if he wants. And this is the Israeli way now. However, since we have hostages, and they are holding like around 240 hostages, which we have proofs that they are in Gaza. Some of them are already killed. One was already released alive, and two women, one soldier, a lady soldier, and an old lady were found dead. And it is clear that they were murdered recently, not a month and a half ago. And now Israel negotiated and came to an agreement, which during the coming 5 days, in every day, the Hamas will release 10 hostages, and in return, Israel stopped the attack on Gaza. Israel will not fly above Gaza in order not to see what they do during the
Where they come
ceasefire
out.
time. And but tonight, Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, and the Minister of Defense, Gallant, and another member, Gantz, in the government, appeared and said clearly that the ceasefire will continue up to 10 days, because every additional day which they keep the ceasefire, if they release 10 more hostages. So we hope that by the end of this ceasefire time, 100 hostages will be released. Look, they hold some kids as hostages, among
Yes.
them one who is 9 months old. 9 months old kid who is held hostage in Gaza, which is totally, totally, totally against any human rights
Well,
issue.
there is nothing in their actions that complies with any notion of human rights
Look, they
or
didn't even
even
allow
common decency.
they didn't even allow the Red Cross to come to see how the people are, and some of them are sick. And
Yes.
even one lady actually gave birth in 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 in
In captivity.
in Gaza, and nobody knows what her situation is and
But you
what
see
they.
that is the moral dilemma, because these 10 days. By the way, for those who do not know much about Israeli policies, you mentioned Netanyahu and Gantz. Uh, Not too long ago, they were bitter opponents, weren't they?
Yes, but since the war
But
started,
not now.
all the politics, or most of the politics, are out of the room, and now everybody is concerned about the existence of the state. because
Yes.
we understand that the problem is much bigger
We
than
can go
Hamas.
back to bickering. We can go back to bickering when the danger subsides.
Right. Yes, this is our nature, but what I'm saying is that the problem is much bigger than Hamas because don't forget that
Yes.
Iran, Hezbollah, and the other
Well,
militias are waiting to see.
let's get into that in a second. But every day that there is a ceasefire, Hamas has an opportunity to reassemble, to reinforce defenses, to sneak out and continue from someplace else. It
Yes,
is very counterproductive. It's very counterproductive for Israel to not take advantage of the situation on the ground and actually allow Hamas to reorganize, retrench, and maybe even escape and come back through another site.
you're definitely right. But without and therefore without the hostages, if there were no hostages in the hands of Hamas, Israel would never stop and never
Yep.
cease fire. The only thing is the humanitarian issue for the hostages because we care about our people while Hamas are hiding behind the civilians. We
Yes.
we we both,
I actually think that Israel cares about Gaza civilians more than Hamas does.
no doubt, no doubt. Look, one of the Hamas leaders was interviewed, and the interviewer asked him, "Why don't you allow the citizens of Gaza to take refuge in your tunnels, or which you dug under Gaza, 500 kilometers of tunnels, so many?" So he said, "Tunnels are for our fighters. The civilians are under the authority and the responsibility of Israel and the United Nations. That's how they let Israel
That's how
take
they
care
view
of
it.
it. This is
Yes.
the satanic attitude, not only to Israel, satanic attitude to their own citizens. And you know what?
Yes.
Once,
One might say that Gazans are the first victims of Hamas. And after
yeah,
victimizing the
no
Gaza
doubt,
population, then they expand across the border.
yes, no doubt. Now, here, but we have to emphasize here a very important point. Since Hamas started a war by itself without notifying Iran and Hezbollah and without their participation, Hamas actually exposed the satanic Iranian plan to attack
Yes.
Israel from all the sides. And Israel now understands the problem, understands the danger. Half of the Israeli army is in the north, deterring Hezbollah. We are aware of what happened with what is happening with Yemen, and this is why all the missiles and the airplanes which they sent against us, we knocked them down. Means Israel now is much more prepared to the big war which Iran planned,
Yes.
and they actually
Let's go there before we run out of time, because time is flying, and I could listen to you for the next 2 hours easily.
look,
But
what I
Philip's
would
gonna
to
cut us off at eight
emphasize,
thirty.
Saul, uh,
Yes.
actually Hamas destroyed the Iranian plan, and the
Yes.
Iranians and Hezbollah and all the others are very angry at Hamas.
Very.
This is
You
why
can see it.
this is why so far they didn't do anything against Israel except for some border clashes, which is insignificant.
Yes, a
They
couple
did
of
not,
missiles, a couple of rockets.
yeah, and
But both Nasrallah and Khamenei have essentially said to Hamas, "You're on your own."
yes, because you broke the line which we tried to build against Israel, and you actually took everything which we gave you, ammunition, weapons, support, everything, and you wasted it. in a war which has no prospects, because you by yourself cannot face Israel. Israel is way too much powerful than you are. So you actually wasted the credit and wasted everything which we gave you, and you are now on your own. And this is what happened. Of course, they don't say it publicly, but they say it behind the scenes. And the attitude to Hamas, and mainly the fact that they have not yet entered the war until this very day, this actually was the shows that they are very upset
Very.
about what Hamas did. Uh, and now,
Now,
not only this, now the
Israel is now
Americans,
understanding. Yeah, Israel is now understanding the danger. Is there
yes,
an understanding that unless you cut off the Hydra's head, the problem will never be solved?
not only this, not only Israel understands, the world understands. Europe supports Israel, which is very rarely you can see this
First
thing.
time in a long time, yes.
Uh, America supports Israel overwhelmingly because now there is a fleet of the American Navy headed by the aircraft carrier Ford and all the ships which come with it,
Yes,
and they are a real threat against Hezbollah and against Iran. Because if this fleet becomes angry at something, this is not good for Iran or
no,
for. Okay,
no.
they can
I
be
don't
very
think I
dangerous.
exaggerate. I don't think I exaggerate if I say that the Jerry Ford's capabilities are more than enough to obliterate any Iranian military capability within a week.
Yes, definitely. So what I'm saying is that this is a major surprise for the Iranians because they didn't plan on having the Americans above their heads if they attack Israel.
Right.
And here, all of a sudden, they have this fleet uh, right across from Israel. And the Europeans also
Yes. No,
support Israel.
and we also have some ships in the Red Sea and the Gulf.
Right,
The one in the Red Sea has already intercepted several missiles from the
right.
Houthis.
So,
Uh,
so this attack by Hamas actually destroyed everything which the Iranians prepared. And look, I'm not trying to say that the Iranians will never do anything against Israel as of now, but definitely right now it's not the time to launch an attack on Israel. Yet they can surprise, because whenever you think that your enemy will not attack you, this might be
that's
the
when you're
time
at
which
most
he will.
danger.
Right,
Yes, that's a moment of gravest danger for you.
right.
Um, we started talking about Europe and the U.S. Some of us have been very concerned with the American administration's almost uh, tireless campaign to have some kind of deal with Iran at whatever the cost. And that deal was actually being brokered by Russia at one point, which I find extremely humorous. And it was because of the sanctions applied after the Ukraine invasion that Russia refused to play ball, and that deal fell in Vienna in March of 22. But some in the administration are determined to get it back. How does that affect the prospects of Iran becoming more bellicose, not less?
Yes. Look, you can add to the equation, you can add China as well, because China stands with Iran. China, in this case, is not a friend of Israel, and of course, not the West. And the Gaza issue actually becomes a problem between the two blocks of the world. One block is the Eastern Bloc, means Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, South Africa, Venezuela, all these pariah states on one side, which are all siding with Gaza in a way or another, versus the other pact in the world, which is Western Europe or Europe, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Israel, and the countries which are influenced by the West. And we actually exchanged the Cold War, which was until the early 90s or late 80s, with some kind of not even latent war, open war in Ukraine.
Open war.
In,
Oh
in
no,
Ukraine,
and many more. I mean, the thousands of Americans who have died through or as a consequence of attacks directly by Iran, whether it be in Iraq, Syria, or elsewhere. It's in the last 20 years almost as many as the U.S. lost in the Iran and Afghanistan wars.
and it is
It
amazing.
is insane. From over 300 Marines in Beirut in '83 to 700 in Saudi during the first Gulf, right
Yeah.
after the first Gulf War. Uh, and in the past 2 months, there have been over 60 attacks, which cost 50 some wounded and 2 dead already.
Yeah,
And this is going on. It is a shooting war. It's not a cold war.
yeah, and it is amazing that the United States of America still has not yet declared war against Iran, still tries to appease Iran, still uh, lifts sanctions from Iran once in a while, and the
Yes,
Iranians are
or ignores sanctions.
right, ignore sanctions.
In,
And
in, in the past 3 years, we have allowed Iran to collect over $70 billion in oil sales in violation of the sanctions, and nobody
yeah,
seems to care.
and I'm asking myself, what else? What else has to happen between Iran and the United States until the United States actually is waking up to see the enemy which shouts death to America, death to Israel?
Yes, yes, indeed. I don't know. I guess they will have to
Are they
succeed at a major attack. They just tried one in the Canadian border. It didn't go as planned for them, but eventually one of these will succeed.
look? I'm asking myself, are the Americans waiting for like a Pearl Harbor in order
Yes,
to start to enter the war? Don't they
yes,
see?
nothing short of another 9/11 will do.
Right. And the Al
It's silly,
Qaeda
but it's true.
and Al Qaeda leaders actually found asylum in Iran,
Yes.
which is rather surprising because Iranians are Shia while Al Qaeda are
Well,
Sunnah.
you know, and I know that when it comes to killing the great Satan, there is no Shia or Sunni problem. Iran
Right?
has been financing and aiding Sunni terrorist organizations since the 80s,
Like Hamas.
like Hamas, like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, like Al Jihad, like Al Qaeda, like oh my God,
Many
I
others.
can't remember. It, uh, remember the TWA flight when
Right?
all the hijackers found refuge in Iran?
Right? So
It,
what I'm saying is that Iran is one of the vile enemies of the West, if not the biggest
it's
enemy
the
of the West. And
it's
yet,
the and the most dangerous one.
most they're just most bold, I would say.
Yes.
which keeps speaking to them and cheating on them, conning them, and now it is on its way to acquire nuclear weapon, which will give it immunity.
Yes,
So,
indeed. And apparently, our administration seems determined to wait until to find out if it's true that we glow in the dark after being nuclear bombed before taking any measures.
but,
One thing experience has taught me in the years I've been studying terrorism: if they have the capability, they will use it. Period.
uh, look, every military action needs three elements. One is capability, weapons, munitions, so forth.
Yes.
The second is willingness to launch an attack. And the third is
Yes.
an opportunity. Once they have all the three, the capability, the willingness, intention, and and the good occasion to launch it, they will launch it.
Yep.
And here we are.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. My dear Dr. Kadar, I have so many more questions for you, but unfortunately, in about 2 minutes, Twitter is going to cut us off because they give you an hour for this.
Let me add
Uh,
the last point, which is very
yes,
important. Hamas, the initials of the name of Hamas is the Islamic Resistance Movement. It's not even Palestinian in the definition. It's Islamic because they are fighting
yes,
the war of Islam before it's a war of the Palestinians. Islam doesn't view Israel altogether as a legitimate state because Jews should be subjugated to Islam. And therefore, Israel has no right to exist, even it was in the size of 1 square centimeter on the seashore of Tel Aviv. And this is
yes.
why the occupation is everything in Israel, not only what
I
happened in
was going to say
67 and
it
for,
it 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 serves no purpose to
and
counter the argument of the Israeli occupation stating Gaza hasn't been occupied, because these people are not talking about the occupation of Gaza. They're talking about the occupation of Haifa, Tel Aviv,
right
Jerusalem.
now
It's
look
all
at
of
this.
Israel
This is
that, according to them, is occupied land.
this is a scarf of Hamas, of the
Yes,
Hamas branch in Birzeit University. And here you can see the emblem, which includes the map of this whole state of Israel,
yes,
from Metula to Eilat. And this is the book in the side.
right.
So you can see very clearly that the whole Israel is the problem. By the way,
Yes.
they are no different from the PLO, which Biden and
No,
Blinken,
not at all. And
because
people have forgotten about the Al-Aqsa brigades and Fatah.
yeah,
Uh,
and this
we
is
are
the scarf,
negotiating, right?
this is the scarf of
This
the
is the curve
PLO
of the PLO, right?
and the PLO
There you go.
flag, with the Palestine from the river to the sea. Okay,
Yes,
so what is the big difference between and Hamas and the PLO?
none,
There
none
is
whatsoever,
absolutely no difference. And
none
unfortunately,
whatsoever.
the American administration of today, although they are good friends of Israel, they still think that the PLO is a friendly partner for
They
peace.
they think that terrorists who finance the attack on Israeli athletes in Munich in '72 are partners for peace.
Yeah, and they think that if you give a terrorist a nice house, nice car, nice
Yeah.
job, a nice
Yes,
income, he will give up on terrorism.
it is a form of psychosis. No, these people want the destruction of Israel, and the only thing I could say to them is, indeed, from the river to the sea, Israel will be free from terrorism.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. I very much appreciate you're coming. I hope we can do this again and continue the conversation. And as a way of good night, I'm Israel High.
Thank you so much. Take care.